I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. This weekly podcast is available on most major platforms and on my YouTube channel. Subscribe now and get automatic notifications with each new episode. And if you enjoy it, share it with a friend. Each week, a topic, discussion, or story from our lives.
Season 7, Chapter 2, Twittelon.
I thought Twittelon would be a great name for Elon Musk's latest purchase. Why not? If your ego says you can spend $44 billion on a $10 billion company, then name it after yourself. I'm surprised he hasn't done it, but it's early. Mind you, he didn't do it with Tesla, drive the new Elantra, or SpaceX. My Space. No, that's already done. Musk rockets. But hey, when Musk took over Twitter, what was the deal with the kitchen sink gag? You saw that, right? He walked into Twitter headquarters in San Francisco carrying a sink. I've been trying to explain that gag to myself ever since. So the expression is everything but the kitchen sink. So did that mean he was investing, what, everything and the kitchen sink? Possibly. Again, $44 billion for a company worth less than a quarter of that. But then he's not actually putting in a lot. Rumor is he's going to cut and cut and cut some more. So then he's cutting everything but the kitchen sink, which he's now physically bringing into the building? Well, none of it makes any sense. And finally, it wasn't a kitchen sink. It looked more like a bathroom sink. There is no maxim, saw, or proverb that involves a bathroom sink, at least not to my knowledge. Him carrying in a toilet would have been more apropos. Let's face it, Elon Musk, as evidenced by his hosting stint on Saturday Night Live last year, is not funny. Of all the parts that developed in his alleged giant brain, obviously sense of humor was not one of them. And there's only one thing worse than a person without a sense of humor. And that's a person without a sense of humor who thinks they're funny. Why did Elon Musk buy Twitter? Do we take what he says at face value? That he's a true believer in free speech? And that the world needs a town square social media platform where differing viewpoints can be freely proffered, then debated in an atmosphere of mutual respect? Yeah, like that's Twitter. Well, maybe that's it, and believe me, I'm going to get to the free speech issue a little later on in this podcast. But was that the Musk motivation? Because when I look at Elon Musk, I don't see altruism. I mean, yeah, he's into a lot of cool things. Brain science, electric cars, exploration of space. But of everything Musk owns, he invented none of it. He bought existing companies. He's a businessman. Success in business and altruism rarely work together. They mostly clash. All right, first let's look at this business decision. And I'm going to do a for dummies version of this because in this area, I'm a dummy. But there are a few basics here that pretty much anyone could figure out. Why did Elon Musk get the bee in his bonnet to buy Twitter? Not sure, and it doesn't matter in this particular discussion. He did. And also remember, this has been going on for about 7 months. Back in April, Musk announced that he had become Twitter's largest shareholder. And when he discovered that that would not increase his control over the company, he threatened to buy the whole thing. The day he got serious and started throwing around numbers of an offer to buy it all, we know now that that was the day he was committed. That was the beginning of the end, about 7 months ago. 3 main reasons. Number 1, Musk filed his offer in the state of Delaware. Many big companies and rich people file in Delaware because, for reasons I won't get into now, it's a tax haven. Sounds good, right? Except Delaware also has a court of chancery. It is a specific court that handles all business and corporate legal decisions. All of their judges specialize in corporate law. This is usually very favorable for large corporations, except that the Court of Chancery doesn't like chicanery. Money business, not monkey business. Cash flow without the tomfoolery. No hijinks on high finance. Okay, I'll stop now. But the court does see to it that no one takes advantage of their little state-run corporate tax haven. And Musk is a high-profile public narcissist who says one thing, does another, then says another thing and does another. He was perceived as using his filing as a negotiating tactic, a bargaining tool, haggling in public. That did not go over well with Delaware's Court of the Court of Chancery. This means at some point they would have made him abide by the papers that he had filed and signed. Number 2. When it comes to stocks and investments, mergers and acquisitions, the U.S. Sheriff is the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. They had already been battling with Musk and he with them for the last 4 to 5 years. They felt Musk was basically manipulating share prices on a property that he was trying to buy. And he was doing it with tweets. 3. Fines and lawsuits. It was well publicized that Musk and Twitter each agreed that they would pay $1 billion fine if either of them backed out of the deal for no good reason. So there is that. But Musk also faced billions and billions more in potential lawsuits from growth investors, who would be promised, of course, a profit, or from Twitter itself, because Musk's open and public remarks were driving down their stock value. Let's say I want to buy a hotel and I offer $1 billion. Then late in the middle of the night, I sneak in and release a bunch of rats. Then the next day, I tell everybody the hotel is rat infested and only worth $500 million. That's illegal. So many parties would have a good reason to sue Elon Musk in a country where you don't even need a very good reason to sue somebody. Once Elon Musk began this process, his big ego and his big mouth pretty much committed him to the purchase. Then there's this on top. Musk is no longer the darling of Wall Street. As much as we herald all the things that he's into, most of his billions revolve around Tesla. Tesla only earlier this year had a market value of $1.1 trillion. That's more than a dozen other top automakers combined. Why so high? Again, growth investors. It's not that it's worth over $1 trillion, but they think it's a good bet that it will be one day. They invest in growth. Short term, long term. But then a bunch of stuff happened. There was global supply chain issues. Not as many Teslas were being cranked out as forecasted. Their own CEO, Musk, called some new Tesla plants in Berlin and Texas gigantic money furnaces. You don't want to hear that from the boss. And then he started ranting about buying Twitter. At the same time, he's at odds with the SEC and Delaware. Tesla shares plummet. If you are financing your Twitter whims based on the strength of your electric car, and that charge of money seems to be weakening, well, guess what? Is this little Twitter fascination going to cost him everything? That seems like a radical, extreme remark. But there is a long history of disastrous acquisitions. Nextel and Sprint, Kmart Sears, News Corp MySpace, and the granddaddy of them all, AOL Time Warner. That one is a legendary fail in the world of business. Most of these names that you just heard here now barely exist anymore in any substantial form. They were too big to fail companies that now have all but vanished, and due to bad acquisitions and mergers. After the AOL acquisition of Time Warner in 2000, it only took about 3 years for them to vaporize over $200 billion of investors' money. Then, poof, they folded. It's still considered the worst ever in business history. But Scott Galloway, who's a professor of marketing at the NYU School of Business, says the second worst in history is Musk's acquisition of Twitter. $44 billion for a $10 billion company, basically burning $33 billion in under 7 months. Twitter also carries a consolidated debt that is pushing about $20 billion more. Gee, I thought EM was a business genius. Oh, sure, you're saying, so what? Elon Musk is worth a few billion less now. Boo-hoo. But burning through this kind of money, that translates into people's lives and jobs. How soon before Twitter's debt and, frankly, unremarkable revenues start affecting Tesla's bottom line? It's not just about the rich people. When elephants fight, it's the ants that are killed. One more quick note on the big money. So let's say Musk turns Twitter into this free speech town square where almost anything is allowed except for maybe medical misinformation and manipulation of elections. Then what if the People's Republic of China mobilizes bots on Twitter in an attempt to influence American voters? Well, Musk would have to shut them down, wouldn't he? Estimates say about 1/4 of Musk's money comes from China. So how would the increasingly isolationist government of Xi Jinping react? Would they close all markets to Musk and Tesla? You know, Musk has recently been in negotiations with Brazil to ensure supply of rare earth elements needed to build those electric cars. Now in Brazil, Bolsonaro did lose, but that country is in turmoil. And what if the right in Brazil starts to mobilize on Twitter about a stolen election? What does Musk do then? Man, that little blue bird just soiled that electric car. Here's another one of the first questions to come up. With an all-new Twittelon, would we see the return of Donald Trump to the platform?
It's a collusion witch hunt.
I doubt it. Can two narcissists share the same social platform without driving each other crazy? Trump had 4 million followers, and he knew how to mobilize via tweets. So it's not nothing. But here's the deal. This is a stunning statistic, and it was reported even before the Donald got the boot. 72% of Americans learned of Donald Trump's tweets from television news. Television news seems hell-bent on promoting social media platforms. They're always telling you who tweeted what. I get it, but I don't. Also, a couple other quick and relevant stats. Only 1 in 4 Americans is on Twitter. In Canada, it's about 1 in 6. And only 1% say they use Twitter to get political information and discourse. Yet everybody else makes it a bigger deal. Once again, a loud minority who just won't shut up. Television news would have you think that Twitter is some politicized quagmire. But if you can suffer scrolling down a Twitter page for 20 minutes, it's often not really that at all. Let's get to the free speech issue. On my list of people that I would reference for their expertise on free speech and human rights, where does Elon Musk fall? Well, let's see. He's not on page 1. Not page 2. Page 3? Nope. Oh, I see. He's not on the list at all. Let me repeat this from previous podcasts. We have to stop assigning people with smarts just because they got rich. Your ability to make a lot of money doesn't necessarily translate into expertise in other areas. Here we are, once again, like with Facebook, we have a socially inept and awkward individual in charge of a social platform. There's American free speech and there's Canada free speech. American free speech, you can say anything, except, famously, you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. Unless, of course, there is one. The contention now is that America is the crowded political theater, and it's those extremists that are yelling fire. And there isn't one. So yelling fire is not free speech. In Canada, we have different qualifications for hate speech. So you can't just say anything. We have the right to free speech, but we also have the right to remain silent. I wish more people would exercise that freedom. You know, not only should people stand up and say, for example, Kanye, you need to shut up now. But at some point, that request should be enforceable by law. And don't say, yeah, okay, Kanye, but then where do we draw the line? I hate that excuse for inaction. It's not even an argument. Where do we draw the line? If we just keep asking that question, no lines will be drawn. There'll be no boundaries. We need some boundaries. We have to draw the line. And if we find out that it's not working, then we can draw another line at another place. Also, I think we have made a huge mistake even considering issues of free speech as related to social media platforms like Twitter. Twitter, Facebook, et al. Are privately held media companies. I can explain this all in 6 words. No shoes, no shirt, no service. Gee, we easily understand that particular social contract, don't we? You are free to walk around shirtless, just not in this store. And the main reason the store does it is because they realize most of their other clientele doesn't want to be out shopping with a bunch of shirtless, barefoot people. Social media is not a free speech issue. That's why there is content moderation. And content moderation is not censorship, it's content moderation. If you're not free to say something here, chances are you're free to go say it somewhere else. People want to go on social media and feel comfortable with the content. The most successful social media sites, at least financially, are the ones with the greatest amount of content moderation. The far-out wingnut sites, where you can say just about anything you want, they have almost no market value. Remember, we are talking private media business. In business to make money. The other thing a lot of people don't necessarily realize, unless like me you've been in media all of your life, is that in media, and that includes everything from newspapers, radio, TV to social, you are the product. You are what they sell. Ears, eyeballs, clicks. Are you a consumer of media? Yeah, I guess, but you are also the product. The content is only there to get more of those ears, eyeballs, clicks. And social media is the laziest one of them all. At least some of the others try to create some content. On social, you provide the content. And then you can consume some as well, and they will reap all the rewards. I mean, YouTube shares some revenues, but that's about it. They all get rich based on your picture of a cat in a Halloween costume. It's social media. It's not a free speech platform, and you are the product. And it's not only your ears, eyes, and clicks. It is also the dossier of data you are willing to hand out. You know, because it used to be you would deliver a flyer to every house on the block, hoping that at least one or two might be interested in your duct cleaning service. Same when you run a TV ad for, 1 million people. You're hoping at least a few impressions were somehow made. Social is big data. They know so much about you. And what they don't know, they can probably extrapolate. You know, that guy doesn't even have ducts. That is worth a lot of money. We're down here arguing about free speech, censorship, and political discourse, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters. It's your life that is being mined for cash. So we come back to this. Why did Elon Musk buy Twitter? Not sure, don't care. I suspect it was a business decision with undertones of social responsibility. At least that's the way I see it. I mean, you know, you look at his record. He could have made coal-burning cars. He didn't. He made electric. He could have bought a chain of strip clubs. He didn't. He bought a brain science company. I'm sure Elon believes that he's fighting the good fight. But he got where he is by making business decisions. He is a businessman. We've established that. He did it. He bought it. He owns it. Now the question is, can he make a go of it? I think it's going to be rough. I think this open town square idea is impossible without extensive content moderation. The people want it and advertisers want it. Corporations already today are forced to take a side on one issue or the other. They hate that. They don't want to lose consumers. Why would they deliberately throw themselves into a maelstrom of mood and opinion? It used to be that to succeed in business, you had to advertise on this network or this newspaper or this radio station. That doesn't exist anymore. You can succeed without being on Twitter. You know, advertisers pay extra money to people like Facebook and YouTube so that their ads don't appear next to controversial content if they don't want that. Can Twitter even make that same guarantee? Oh, it's a mess. One of the first things Musk did, though, well, after that hilarious bathroom sink gag, was appoint a governance council similar to the Facebook model so that he can actually outsource the content moderation. Of course, he's still the boss. But he was trying to send out the message of civility and limitation. And instead, the opposite is happening on Twitter. I don't wish him ill, but I sense disaster. Disaster for Elon, disaster for Twitter. Then imagine the domino effect to Tesla, SpaceX, and so on. It's one thing to be thrown into the pit of despair. It's quite the other to dig one yourself and then jump in. Again, Scott Galloway of NYU, who said that Elon Musk is about to find out that he's not as smart as he thought and that people aren't as dumb as he'd hoped. Unquote. Musk and Twitter have certainly stirred up the conversation, haven't they? Isn't that ironic? We find ourselves having conversations about social media, and especially Twitter, where no real conversations take place. There's none. We call them posts and tweets, retweets and replies. That's not conversation. They used to have this sign at this diner we'd go to, and I've seen it pop up elsewhere since, and it reads, "We don't have Wi-Fi. Talk to each other." I guess it's too late to close the barn door after we've opened up Pandora's box and the can of worms is everywhere. And I mean, we can't render social media meaningless, but we have the power to make it mean less.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk.
Oh, yeah. I have this one more thing really quickly. I have a conspiracy theory that Elon Musk is slightly dyslexic and his real name is Leon Smuck. Well, not really, but sometimes I actually wonder if that's true. Okay, that time it's really it. Goodbye. See you next week.
Larry Fedoruk 37 at gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.